Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we got to talk about all-rounders. So this is the fun thing. I realize that whenever I stream, I have so many different discussions about so many different things, and there's only anywhere between 200 and 300 of y'all that actually get to hear it all. So I love taking some of those discussions and really thinking about them and then putting them into video form. So last night we were talking a lot about the jungle meta, and I want to give a TLDR on my thoughts on the jungle meta, because the reality is that I hate the jungle meta. I hate the jungle meta so much. As a jungler main, it's not that big a deal, I guess. It's not existential. It doesn't completely ruin the game. But to me, it's definitely putting a gigantic hindrance on the game. So let's talk about the jungle meta very briefly, and then we'll have our discussion about all-rounders. So the jungle meta is currently... The problem with the jungle, sorry, I want to refocus, is that the jungle gives a ton of experience over just lane. The farming of the jungle is free, it's very safe, and the jungle is so easy to do that anybody can do it. So the jungle meta is currently being dominated by ranged, physical attackers, being Cinderace and Greninja, primarily Greninja right now, and no one else is nearly as capable as Greninja. And it's not that other junglers can't clear as fast, or it's not that other junglers aren't as good. It's just that no other jungler, or not many other characters or Pokemon in the game, have the same carry potential. So when you're looking at pumping a bunch of experience into, say, Machamp or Talonflame over Greninja, it's just not worth it, because Greninja turns into this crazy hyper carry, Cinderace turns into this crazy hyper carry that just steamrolls the game and does a ton of damage, and you want to have that. So that's what the high tier jungle meta is, which means for the all-rounder discussion that all-rounders are kind of forced into jungle, except for Lucario being the one exception. Lucario probably won't be talked about a lot in this video because he's just really, really good in all situations. So that's what leads us to the all-rounder talk. The all-rounders in the game, I'm just really uncomfortable with where they are. I think that they're all good. This is the crazy thing. Sometimes you have to look at the difference between perception versus reality, and I think that the perception of a lot of characters in Pokemon Unite is that they're not very good, when in reality, I think that a lot of the characters in Pokemon Unite are actually very good, but the current state of the meta, with Cinderace and Greninja hard dominating the jungle, really holds them back from seeing nearly as much play that they could be seeing. That said, an all-rounder, what is that meant to do? What does that sound like? To me, all-rounder means balanced stats, right? Kind of durable, kind of attack heavy. They're tanky, but they're also not a tank. They can do damage, but they're not an attacker, right? That's a little bit of the insinuation when you hear all-rounder. All-rounder to me also means that they're well-rounded. They're capable of doing it all. That's kind of the message that I pull from the name. And in the current state of the meta, the reality is that 3/4 of the all-rounders cannot lane. So we could have a long discussion about how I think the jungle meta needs to change, and how I want to pull attackers out of jungle and make it impossible for them to jungle, and I do. But I think that we should look at the flip side of that discussion as well, to talk about the fact that all-rounders can't really lane. And why is that? Why can't they lane? Well, the reality is that you can make it happen. I don't really want to get us locked into this anecdote about oh, well, I play lane Machamp or Garchomp and it's fine. Because yeah, you can make it happen, you can make it work, but it's not really good. And there's for sure a reason why high tier teams or high tier games don't really do it, because it's just not that optimal. But how do you make it a little bit more optimal? How do you make it a little bit more viable? To me, I had an idea, and the idea would have to be tested numerically, so I'm going to throw out a figure, but I want y'all to know that obviously I can't test it and I can't balance it, so just kind of stick with me. So if you actually look at the stats of various Pokemon, you can see that at all of their different levels, you can tell what their different scalings and things are. So for example, I'm looking at Machamp's stats, and at level 1, he has 98 defense and 64 SP defense. So at level 1, you have defenses. You have a certain amount of health pool, you have a certain amount of attack, and SP attack. So how could you make it to where the all-rounders are in lane at level 1 or level 2, and they're not just getting completely dominated by like ranged attackers or, you know, Pokemon that are good in lane? So to me, I thought about it, why couldn't we just ramp up some of their defenses early on? So like I said, I'm going to throw out a figure, I'm going to say ×2. So what if his defense was like just shy of 200 instead of 98, and what if his SP defense was around 120 instead of 64? Now here's the thing, if you look at that chart, that puts his defenses up to like level 8 level. So that's probably too much, I'll be honest. So we could maybe drop that down a little bit, you know, for sure. So like I said, that's probably too much. But the reality is, or the sentiment is that if we increase AllRounders defense in the early game, and then we kind of like slowly increase it for the remaining levels to still keep it on pace to hit what it hits now at the like the higher ends or the higher levels, then we would just have a different curve for how their defenses would work. And I worry that might make them way too strong, but at the same time, if they're getting completely dominated in lane because they're just getting poked out, that's probably not a good way of having them balanced. I think that a lot of these characters have been I don't know, I'm curious because they put all the all-rounders as like lane preferences. I think like when they recommend you where to take them, it's for the lane, but I don't really see that that's like the most optimal place to put them. So I'm pulling up right now, I'm looking at Cinderace's stats, and he's got 50 defense and 30 SP defense. So you can tell that he's definitely like squishier in the sense, but I don't think that it's enough to keep, you know, someone like Machamp in lane comparatively. Like whenever he's melee, you know, he's gonna really struggle. But you know what, let's look at Cramorant. So I'm gonna look at Cramorant. Cramorant has 60 defense and 40 SP defense. And what did I say Machamp has? Machamp has 98 and 64. So, you know, he doesn't even have like double his defenses, and yet he is, you know, like completely melee, and Cramorant can just completely dominate the lane against Machamp. So yeah, I think that would be a decent idea. I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I don't know that this would work. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, like I said, a lot of this stuff, when you have ideas like this, it has to be tested. I would worry that it would make them way too strong in the early game, and they would have to find a way to find the right numbers. If you could increase it enough that they could actually stand in the lane and take some damage, so that way they can fight for farm, that would be enough to really keep them there and get the farm. But then as the game scales upward, we wouldn't just have it like a linear scaling upward. Like for example, level 15 defense on Machamp is 490. Well, if we increase the level 1 defense, we wouldn't want to increase it all the way down the whole levels. We would just want to increase the early levels, so that way they can lane a little bit better. So I'm thinking like levels 1 through 5, if they could see like a nice increase in defense, maybe a 30% increase in defense or 25% increase in defense, that could really help them out in the lane. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like I said, this is really just a discussion about all-rounders versus the jungle meta. In reality, I still think that attackers should come out of the jungle, because otherwise we're going to be having this same exact discussion about speedsters, and I really do think that speedsters should be the class that like thrives in jungle, and then all-rounders should be like the class that can jungle very effectively if you want one. Like if you wanted to do a double all-rounder comp, you could do like Machamp in jungle and then have like Lucario in lane, or you know, if they actually do find ways for all-rounders to lane effectively, you could do that vice versa, or throw in a Charizard or throw in a Garchomp. So that's what I'd like to see. So like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, friends, be sure to be kind to one another, tell someone that you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.